Okay, let's dive right into this explainer with a question that's honestly causing a bit of an existential crisis in the business world right now. Is AI just another software product, or is it actually your newest employee?
Today, we're going to explore the massive operational, financial, and legal ramifications of AI's leap from a passive tool you use to an autonomous digital worker that does things for you. We are literally leaving behind the era of just clicking buttons and entering an era where we're delegating highly complex work to non-human actors. To wrap our heads around this complex evolution, we've got 5 key areas on our agenda. We'll define the new digital worker, look at how it's reshaping the human workforce, break down the economics of autonomy, dive into the legal accountability gap, and finish up with minimum viable governance. All right, let's get into it.
Section 1. The new digital worker and the transition from support to delegation. Let's really pin down the core of this paradigm shift.
So this comparison right here brilliantly highlights the central divide. Treating AI as a product means you're just speeding up individual tasks, right? You prompt it, it responds. But treating it as a digital employee, that means you're delegating entire roles and workflows. You're relying on a system that actually uses continuous feedback to get the job done. You're no longer just using a handy tool, you're actively managing synthetic performance.
What's absolutely fascinating here is how our relationship with the technology fundamentally flips. Instead of supervising a tool, you are orchestrating a 24/7 synthetic performer. Just look at that integration row at the bottom. A software product has low read-only integration, but a digital employee needs deep read-write API integration. You're actually handing the system the authority to take real actions on its own.
Moving on to Section 2, Reshaping the Human Workforce. The paradox of job creation and automation. Let's see how this coworker shift is physically changing company structures.
So check this out. While 85% of workers anticipate AI is going to impact their roles pretty soon, they are perfectly split down the middle on whether it's going to be a helpful force multiplier or just directly replace them. 42.5% see it as a help, and 42.5% are afraid it's a replacement. And the research actually shows that remote workers are feeling especially anxious about this, probably because their highly digital tasks have a ton of exposure to these generative models.
But the reality of job displacement is super nuanced. Yes, routine, entry-level tasks are definitely declining. But on the flip side, we saw an incredible 220% year-over-year growth in demand for data labeling work. And it's not just technical stuff either. There was a 74% spike in coaching and training roles just to help humans adapt to working alongside AI. So we aren't just losing jobs, we're aggressively completely changing what those jobs actually look like.
And when humans and machines truly collaborate, the gains are massive. Take engineers at Anthropic, for example. They're reporting that they handle about 60% of their daily tasks with AI, which gives them a 50% productivity boost. It's essentially turning highly focused specialists into full-stack operators who can kind of do it all. Although we should note the research does flag a risk here, traditional human mentorship might erode, simply because junior employees are now asking an AI bot for help instead of tapping a senior colleague on the shoulder.
Okay, Section 3. The economics of autonomy. Immediate savings versus future compute costs. Let's talk about the actual financial reality behind these digital employees.
Right off the bat, the immediate cost savings are frankly staggering. An AI agent has a flat cost structure that can save businesses up to 90% compared to a human employee. Think about it. A fully loaded human worker could easily cost upwards of $300,000 over 5 years when you factor in salary, benefits, office space, turnover. Compare that to a specialized AI bot that costs maybe $500 a month. It is a massive disparity.
But hold on a second, because this model is definitely going to evolve. As compute costs rise and these systems require much more complex orchestration, things will change. In fact, Gartner predicts that by 2030, the generative AI cost per resolution could easily exceed $3, which actually surpasses the cost of offshore human labor. What that means for you is that the value proposition of AI is going to have to shift away from just simple cost cutting and move toward real value creation and solving highly complex problems.
Which brings us to Section 4, the legal accountability gap. Simply put, who gets sued when the digital employee fails? If your AI saves you a ton of money but hallucinates a bad contract, who takes the fall?
This right here is the core of the issue. AI obviously lacks legal personhood. It can't form intent, it can't consent to anything, and it certainly doesn't owe your company any fiduciary duty of loyalty.
So, when these autonomous agents start going out there and signing contracts, negotiating deals, or initiating financial transactions without a human in the loop, it creates a massive legal void.
Well, courts are actively bridging this gap using a concept called vicarious liability. In plain English, this means the liability for whatever the AI spits out flows straight up the chain to the human or the organization that deployed it. Professional standards of care are completely technology neutral. A reasonable professional still has to validate the machine's work. Just because you used AI doesn't reduce your legal standard of care at all. The buck still stops with you.
And to protect consumers, we're seeing a patchwork of state laws pop up that keep the legal crosshairs squarely on the humans running these models. States like Texas and Ohio are actively passing legislation that firmly rejects any notion of electronic personhood. You absolutely cannot blame the algorithm. The responsibility rests entirely on the deployer.
So how do we handle this? Section 5, Minimum Viable Governance. Let's look at a practical roadmap for safe AI adoption. To maintain meaningful, actual human control over these systems, organizations need a minimum viable governance framework. And it's built on these 5 critical pillars: clear approval gates, regular audits for bias, verifiable human contributions for any high-stakes outputs, solid AI literacy training for your staff, and an updated affirmative insurance strategy. Implementing these shifts the whole conversation from individual blame to systematic, smart risk management. And honestly, the best part is that this doesn't require some bloated, years-long corporate rollout. You can establish this entire accountable autonomy structure with a highly actionable 90-day sprint. Month 1, you just take inventory and assess risks. Month 2, you draft your policies and set up approval gates. And month 3, you train your staff and turn on your monitoring systems. It's practical, it scales, and it is absolutely essential.
Because as these AI agents gain more and more autonomy and fundamentally rewrite the social contract of employment, the biggest takeaway you need to think about is this. Are you actually ready to govern your new digital workforce? We're way past just buying software. We are managing an entirely new kind of worker. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.